That's when honestly I knew that no matter what I was gonna do the rest of my life, I'd have a job. Did I say it? Okay, good more. Okay. We all good right here? Cool. My name is Nick Shackelford, and I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of Structured and Constant. I'm a partner at We Are Lucid and Drink Breeze. And this has been 11 years of absolute savagery, and it has been a journey. "11 years ago, I was kicking a soccer ball, and I was like, I'm gonna be a pro soccer player. That is it. That is not it. You can't be a under 6 foot guy in America trying to make it as a goalkeeper. It just wasn't gonna work. And I got the opportunity to sell goalie gloves, actual gloves. And this was the first time I found out what Shopify was. This is the first time I found out what influencer marketing was. This is the first time I actually got to see what happens when you can convince other people to buy it. And I think that first hit of mailbox money or money that hits you when you're sleeping, I saw the Shopify app go off. That was the first time I was able to sell something. Then that career ended and I started to get into what digital, paid ads, whatever. I didn't know it was e-commerce at the time. Fidget spinners. This was the very first time I understood the power of what ads could do. You find a product that's cheap, you put the product more expensive, and you make a great ad. Okay, so that was all the brain. That was the first scale into hundreds of thousands. That was like the first, I think I got this. Then to know if I had this, I went into the agency world where I think if you don't know what you want to do in your life, I think this is the best place to start because you get to touch all these brands. 3 specifically. You have Pup Socks, you have Posh Peanut, and you have Diff Eyewear. All 3 of them very different, but every one of them went to different marks that allowed me to realize that speed and scale is relative. First, you have Pup Socks, which was a Black Friday event, 0 to 30 plus million in under 32 days. Then I'm never gonna have that ever again. Then Diff, this is the development of what an offer really means. Buy one, get one, or buy more, save more. These 2 terms did not mean a thing to me until we did $250,000 in a single day. And then Posh Peanut, where she has multiple what we call a drop brand. Brands like Supreme, brands that do new sneakers. She would do a weekly drop of new baby products. Every week was 10,000, every week was 20,000, every week was 50,000. The first time we did 1 week in $500,000, it isn't like the Diff Eyewear story, but to do a brand new SKU for babies blew my mind. That's when honestly I knew that no matter what I was gonna do the rest of my life, I'd have a job. I think the biggest misconception for starting a D2C brand or a direct consumer brand anywhere is that you aren't focused on the right things around brand or product. There's a wild romanticism to how the brand should look. If you don't have, and you can go on Twitter, you can go on LinkedIn, you can go anywhere. If you don't have money, you don't have a brand, so it doesn't matter how fast you get to grow. So the first misconception is don't sacrifice how much money you can make because of needing the branding or the color of the website or something to be perfect, because it doesn't matter. Any customer that's buying your product doesn't give a shit about what it's actually going to look like. It just needs to be a very quality product. It needs to taste great, it needs to feel great, it needs to be made well. And so those are the areas of product before brand. Now, I'm gonna kind of speak out of the other side of my mouth a little bit. It can't be terrible. It can't just be very thoughtless. It does need to have some sort of structure in building this. So I think the first part, product first, support it with an incredible brand. Just don't spend too much time around needing to be perfect, because it's gonna change. Second, I think understanding that you do need money for growth. That is an issue that we see them. They'll come in and be like, hey, I really want as many customers that we can afford to have. And at the time, it's difficult because you probably have margins of product, you probably have margins of employee or headcount. You can be very dangerous with a team under 5. 0 to 5 million is the hardest stage for a brand. And we're in that stage right now because we're in growth. Because we spend most of our time on how many more customers we need to get. and how much communication we need to have with those customers. That's the team. That's literally the team. It should be under 5 people at the beginning because there's no necessary need to have a tremendous amount of teamwork, especially around this early stage, because you have agencies to do things, you have freelancers to do things that can save your costs, because you only need certain things at the start. Brands starting out should look at it in 2 different ways only: revenue generation and revenue preservation. Generation, acquisition, and content. Acquisition, we're just running Facebook and Google. Don't worry about the other, don't worry about TikTok, it doesn't matter. Don't let anybody convince you otherwise. Those are your core channels and the content that's there to be generated for those platforms. That's 1 or 2 freelancers, that's maybe 1 creator, that's probably the founder, and that should cost you altogether, whether you're running the ads yourself or hiring an agency and having content, nothing more than $4,000 to $5,000 a month, okay? That's your revenue source, that's the most important, invest. Preservation, we'll say email, or that's like the community management, and then customer service. Those 2 should cost you no more than $3,000, and at first, maybe 1 large lump pay just to get everything set up. Out of that, you're fine. You'll get yourself to your first $5 million a year. Three core fuck-ups, 3 core areas that a lot of brands fuck up at the beginning would be pricing, people, and product. So the fuck up for people, they hire way too many people at the start because they think that's what they should do. Here's what you need to do. First, know what roles are going to be owned internally or hired out of. Internally, paid media and content. Now, those could be freelancers, you can argue back and forth, but those are the real areas you need to own. And a retention for people, email marketing and customer support. Those should be internally, and you can even get away with having a freelancer do it one-time setup on the email side. Second, on the pricing. Where a lot of people fuck up is they just choose the price of their competitor and slap it on the product, and that's what they're selling it on. We didn't do this because we needed to make sure that we saved contribution margin. So we actually started at the highest price that we thought customers would buy for, and then give ourselves a little bit of room to, if we need to discount, we'll discount that. And there's no easy way of testing product other than just putting it as high as you can and start to see where the elasticity is around what customers are willing to spend. And the final, product. What a lot of brands do is they order the smallest amount possible. It's not their fault. They don't have a partner that they're able to finance a lot of this for. It's the most expensive part. So what we did is we, A, got a line of credit, and B, got a partner that we're able to finance this inventory. Those are the 2 areas that saved us at start, knowing that we're able to sell through this product. When you're negotiating with the suppliers, the things that get you the better deal, because this is something that we did. We went to them and said, hey, we're willing to pay more for the quantities that we have for longer payment terms. Because again, cash flow is king, and if I can get to the next ad or get to the next month, I'll have more customers under my belt. So when we're buying a lot of lemon, or we're buying a lot of lemon juice specifically, we'll say, hey, we're willing to pay for more cartons at it might be 30 cents for whatever volume that we're doing. We're willing to pay 35 to 40 cents earlier on if we can get longer payment terms. And that fluctuation of, can I pay you later once I get more of my cash from whatever sales I have, is a huge tactic that we like to use. And there's also a lot of payment providers that will cover the invoice for you, a little bit more of invoice financing. And in that route, we'll be able to actually make, no, look, you're not doing anything different. You're just having, you know you're good for it, you're gonna pay the money, but you're gonna have another vendor cover that for you to buy you some time to get more sales in or get that partnership. You might be a week away from a major deal. You might be 2 weeks away from a major Black Friday event, but you don't necessarily wanna give up that cash. Inventory finance that. The unique thing about Juni's invoice financing is that it's actually made for the way our business works. And if you've been here long enough, a lot of the traditional banks, a lot of traditional cards don't get it. Like, they don't know why we need 120 days of time to pay our bills of ads, freelancers, or even inventory. So when you have a team that understands how this works, you don't have to explain, you can just get on with business. So I think it's extremely important to know, if you need to fund your ads for 3 months and you need to fund inventory for 2 months, there's no negotiation needed. It's already built in to the solution. So for me, it gives the brands that we work with the opportunity to scale during months that are the most critical for their business. brand that's starting out, if they wanted to cut through the clutter, they would need to lead with the founder story. I think now more than ever, people are buying because of the founder or buying because of the reason why the product was started. And I think that's where a lot of us start, but we don't highlight it and we don't talk about it. Our product, we started it because we wanted to combat against drinking alcohol. That's the line, that's why we're starting it. And I think when we all embody that and we tell that story, it's so important for other early customers to get behind that. More brands need to do this. Not just telling the founder story. I think the second thing that a brand should focus on, and if you get these two correct, I think growth will be a little bit faster than you anticipated. You need to have an offer. I mean, just be very specific on what this means. An offer is the reason why they're going to buy, not the quality of the product, not the branding of the product, but a dollar amount of value that a customer will have. For instance, we have straight sales, so you can buy just a normal pack from us, or you can subscribe and save 30% on any one of your orders. That offer is convincing enough for someone that might love the product. So if you're thinking about, I just got a really incredible product, I'm gonna put it on a website with the current price point, which we don't really know. Like, we're trying to play a 30% margin, trying to get some sort of highest gross margin as possible, but we don't know. So I would say put it at a price point that you can actually bake in a discount or bake in some sort of incentive to get them to purchase. If I was gonna tell a founder something specific, stop caring about your brand and get as many sales as possible. Charge more for your product, service, whatever it is that you're selling, charge way more than you think, because you're gonna need that margin, especially when things get more expensive. And then lastly, do as much of it as you can yourself until you get to that first $1 million mark. Once you're past that, spend whatever you want on a new website or some new content, but do as much as you can so that you know that customer in and out. I'll tell you this one thing that we messed up on. We outsourced to a specific agency, even though we could do it ourselves, and we didn't understand what the customers are saying early on, whether it's on the ads, whether it's on the feedback. We needed to know that information because it just made us create the messaging better or create the words much better. And a lot of founders just give it to somebody else to do, and they don't get to stay so close to the product or the customer. I think early on, the founders take actually too much input from customers, and they aren't necessarily the mass market, because your first couple hundred, right? It's like an exponential of growth. So at the beginning, it's like very focused. It's maybe mom, dad, close friends, right? That really love the product. And so their input might feel extremely important. And I would say you have to have more input before you actually make decisions, especially in product direction. Because those early on customers might not be your customers that are gonna buy it at mass market or on any sort of consistency. So for us, we didn't get any early feedback from customers unless they bought multiple times for us. Because then we knew that they liked the product, and then we knew that we can actually continue to sell it at that price point. Let's put it this way, if you're a solo founder, you probably feel very alone and nobody understands what it is that you are going through. You're absolutely correct. No one understands the financial burden. No one understands the creative burden. Even your partner, whether your wife or husband, they're not gonna understand what it is that you're going through because a lot of stress lays on you. And so the outlet that I've chosen is to be very public with what I have, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's on Facebook, discussing what it is that you're going through. Other people will find relative to what it is that they're going through. And I think that it's sort of keeps you honest. If you're shy and you don't want to be as public as I am, which a lot of people choose to not be as public as I am, you probably have one or two vendors, whether it's an agency or it's a freelancer or it's financial partner, somebody that's helping you build your business already. That I would just go ask them, hey, do you know anybody that's in my niche or at my revenue state that lives in my region, or even just jumping on a Zoom with them? Can you make an introduction? I just want one or two people to kind of talk to, and it keeps you honest. It really does. Some of the biggest wins I've had is my life is, I don't believe in like work-life balance. Work is my life, and I think it's all the same. So personally, it's kind of businessy. I was on a Clubhouse, if anybody remembers this app back in the day, and I was on a panel where Gary Vee was on. He knew who I was. Not only did he know who I was, I checked like Twitter afterward, and he's been following me for a couple months. And so like that was like cool, like very cool. And whatever you want to say about Gary, still a cool feeling. And then we actually, the feel good thing is we acquired my best friend's agency in 2021. And it was because he was becoming a new father, and he's very similar to me. We have very similar viewpoints on money and in our family history. And he was like, look, I want to be a very good dad, and I want to make sure that I'm okay. And we acquired him. And that to me was like a growing up stage for me, because now I have his family on my shoulders. I have his trust in my hands, and I really wanted to make sure I delivered for it. On the business side, for Breeze specifically, this has been so interesting for me, because you launch a product, and at the end of the day, it is a canned, consumable thing. So it's not a big deal. But when you zoom out, we're going against big alcohol. We're going against like a natural American and worldwide phenomenon of consuming alcohol in bars. That's a huge thing to challenge against. And when you get messages, there's two of them. There's a woman and a man, and specifically speaking, he messages us and he goes, I'm able to get off of the prescription drugs that my doctor has prescribed to me post-surgery, because I'm able to consistently have this drink, right, at whatever it is, and it reduces my anxiety. Because of the THC, because of the CBD, because of the lion's mane, the ingredients and the way that the emulsification happens, if I get all scientific with you, it allows him to reduce his anxiety and inflammation to still function and not have to take any of these pills. Like that's it. That's why you start a product and hoping it becomes human behavior, and it's starting to become human behavior. That's a big one. And I also think when you hit subscribers, because this is the big thing, is the first time we put subscription, you always want someone to stay on it. But since we offer such a deep discount, we don't know if someone's taking the subscription because they love it or they want the discount. So the first time we had someone take the discount, take the subscription, and then reorder it again, and they didn't charge back or say, hey, I didn't want this, was like, where we're like, this is pretty cool. Fast forward, we're 645 subscribers later, and we think we could be 1,000 by end of the year. Like that's when you know you're starting to break into human nature and human routine.
And I think that's a wrap.
You sure? You have nothing left for me?
That's it.
All right.
Really cool.